Welcome home. We are WNST. Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive, AM 1570. Set your dial out there. We've had things set up. If you are in search of our WNST tech service, throw me an email, ness@baltimorepositive.com. I'm going to have some words on that because we had some breaking news through the week. And breaking wrists as well. Luke Jones joins us now. He was on the backfields in Owings Mills. We have a complication here in that he's the only reporter that they allow at both facilities. So when the Orioles are playing and the Ravens are playing, he does one or the other. I do the other, which is usually the television because they don't televise the practices from Owings Mills. And you have to have a ticket to get in. So I can't even get into the Owings Mills practices. Luke joins us now. First things first, practice aside and football aside, it's good to be back out there. But the Jackson Holliday thing, and as far as baseball games go and sort of the momentous nature of the first game after the trading deadline, they call up Jackson Holliday. They ship Norby out. Westburg takes this freak pitch on the inside that was way too reminiscent of Nick Markakis for me. I think that happened a little later in the year, but certainly all-star player, guy on the come. This is a big deal, Jordan Westburg getting hurt, especially when they've dealt from organizational depth, and now they're going to pick up the pieces for another 8 weeks, kind of sort of what happened with Batista went out last year.
It definitely hurts. There's no sugarcoating that this is a pretty big loss. Let's understand it's baseball. No matter how great a player is, they bat 1 out of every 9 times up at the plate because there is a full lineup. So it's not like losing your franchise quarterback, for example. But this is a big loss. I mean, Jordan Westburg, Fangraphs has him second on the Orioles and wins above replacement this year. He is ranking in the top 3 in many offensive categories for the Orioles, and I mean he was an all-star player. So this is a big loss. The timing of it hurts. To your point, right after the trade deadline, and how about the fact that the Orioles finished the homestand on a high note? They won 4 out of 5 to close the homestand. They win 4 out of 5 to close the month of July. That was brutal, for lack of a better term. And you feel like the mojo's starting to move back in the right direction. Jackson Holliday comes back up, hits a grand slam, and we'll get to him in a moment. But Jordan Westburg has just been so steady for them, and so good.
Man, 270. He's got 50 extra base hit. I mean, it's crazy, and it's over, right? Season. What I see on the stats is what it's going to be probably. He's not going to come back and swing a bat in September. I don't think.
Well, I don't know that. I'm not going to make it.
But his season's close to over. How about that?
Well, I mean, in terms of the regular season, I mean, we got to see. I mean, Brandon Hyde in his post-game comments said that they're hopeful he can be back before the end of the regular season. And yeah, I mean, you look at the timeline, it's now August 1st, and there's 2 months of season left. If this is a 6-week kind of injury, and it's a fractured hand, it kind of got him on kind of the pinky side as I'm holding up, my right hand for anyone who isn't watching us on YouTube.
It was almost that soft part, right? You know what I mean? You could see that it looked when he walked down to first base. I'm like, he's not going to play. He's hurt. I mean, when you could see you saw the replay, you're like, that was a pretty direct, nasty pitch.
Yeah, you're just hoping it's one of those where, okay, it's sore and he'll miss a couple days, but unfortunately that was not the case. It's different from Markakis in the sense of like you said, the timing of it. Markakis, that was early September. When that happened, and that was the thumb, actually. So this is the other side of the hand. We'll see. Obviously, they're going to do additional tests than just an X-ray to see what exactly the fracture looks like, what the prognosis is in terms of a timetable. The way Brandon Hyde said before the end of the regular season, that kind of, to me, maybe the initial thought was it's a 6-week injury, and then it's, then, okay, it's kind of tough to get rehab at bats at that point. You're kind of towards the end of the AAA season there, although not, might be able to get a few games in there, but it's tight. I mean, there's no doubt. And certainly missing him, the timing of Jackson Holliday coming up on the same day. I mean, Jackson Holliday hits a grand slam on the next at bat, on an 0-2 pitch. Westburg was at first base after he had been hit. So it's just a bummer. I mean, it really is. It's not, it doesn't ruin their season. It doesn't mean they're not going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but you need as much upside, you need as much consistency as you can get when you're in the midst of a tight race with the New York Yankees in the AL East, and you're trying to make a deep October run. So
And so
the
48
hope
hours ago, we're talking about one relief pitcher, this or that. Don't diminish the team. Don't take my all-stars away. That really
exactly.
it changes the complexion. And when you talk about the Yankees every day because of their age and the brittle nature of the Stantons and the Judges and all these guys that have had injuries, you're always feeling like they're old and broken down. You're feeling like we got that going for us. You know what I mean? Other than actual fatigue, which we experienced a lot of in July, including you this week. Um, I would say, other than fatigue, it didn't feel like this was going to break down. That something tragic was going to have to happen, and it did.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's baseball. No one player is as big as if the Lakers lose LeBron James or the Ravens lose Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, it just by its nature, you have to wait your turn. So it's big. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think you know this from the way I've talked. Jordan Westburg's probably my favorite player on the team in terms of just a guy that's so steady, so consistent, so much of a pro, plays good defense at two positions. I was actually looking forward to him, not just with Holliday coming up and perhaps stabilizing second base for them in the wake of Mateo having struggled for the time that he did and then getting hurt. But also, this was going to give Westburg a chance to play third base every day, which I think he's been better there defensively than he's been at second base. So I think this was a chance for your infield defense to also steady a little bit. And that's been an issue for them over the last month. It hadn't been prior to that, but certainly their defense has had its lapses. We've talked about that, but it's a bummer because this is a guy that's just been so steady for them in the bottom half of their lineup usually. I mean, you could make an argument that he should be hitting
Second.
third or fourth or second, right? Sure. But he's been that guy that I think Brandon Hyde has kind of identified as, this is kind of a silly thing to say, but almost like your prime run producer in the bottom half of the lineup, almost like your cleanup hitter in the second half of the
I was
lineup.
going to say the anchor of the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And, we've seen him hit higher in the order sometimes, but a lot of times it's been, somewhere in that sixth or seventh, area. I think that's where he's probably hit most often without looking at the splits right in front of me. But, I saw some people make mention, they had just traded Connor Norby, obviously, to Miami. I don't know how much impact that would have made in term other than just having more depth and having another, more offensive minded depth piece.
Because neither he or Holiday were going to play third, right?
Right. So the only thing you could have done, and I'm not even saying you wouldn't do this, but I'm guessing you probably wouldn't go in this direction. You could have considered moving Gunnar Henderson to third base, Holiday playing short, Norby at second. That's a lot of moving parts there, especially considering Holiday has focused so much on second base. Although at this point in time, with Mateo out, Holiday's, might be their backup shortstop.
Well, that was the
Gunnar
question
misses a
about
day or
Henderson
two.
being a shortstop versus a third baseman, and he kicked the ball around every day for 2 weeks now at shortstop in some way that, maybe he's going to be a third baseman, but he won't be if Westburg's played. But to your point, if Henderson's the shortstop, you're going to leave that alone. You're not going to mess with him in a pennant race.
And look, I mean, believe me, I agree. Gunner's been in a fielding slump, but prior to the last 2 weeks, he's played really well at shortstop. I mean, makes spectacular plays. And yes, when you have someone who makes spectacular plays, they're going to get to some balls that other shortstops won't even sniff. And on occasion, they might throw it away, right? So you do take a few more errors when you have that more dynamic fielder, knowing that they're just going to get to more. But
by the way, I thought Machado was a better fielder, and I don't say much nice about Machado around here. But just on a defensive level, Machado was one of those third short swing guys, and a lot of them could be. Ripken was a guy that moved around a little bit, but the Henderson, the shortstop thing, that just became a thing last year. And I thought, the whole time he came up, I thought they were leaning more toward third. And maybe it's because Mateo was playing short at the time, right? At the beginning.
Mm-hmm. No, I think they were kind of leaning that way. And Mateo was part of that, of course, but I think they saw that Gunnar just played so well at shortstop last year and played so well there over the first 3 months of this year. Again, I'm not freaking out over a couple weeks, although he needs to settle in. I mean, he made 2 more errors on Wednesday. But yeah, I don't think you would have done that much shuffling. I mean, that feels like trying to fix too much being broken that, where you just say, okay, for now, Ramon Urias is going to play third base. Ramon Urias, who, look, I don't, if I'm being honest, I don't want to see him starting games in October. But for now, I think it's fine. It's fine defensively. He did have a good month of July offensively. One of the few guys who actually swung the bat well in the month of July. And I think for now, Kobe Mayo is probably going to go back to playing third base every day at Norfolk for the time being, because they had kind of been working him out at first base a little bit more here in recent weeks. Maybe with the thoughts of maybe Ryan Mountcastle gets traded. So they had kind of, it felt like they were trending in that direction for him. Now maybe we see him play third base. They're calling up Livan Soto, who they just got back from they got in that Reds trade. For the time being, he's going to be a bench player. He can play shortstop, so I think that's a factor to back up Gunnar Henderson there, knowing Mateo's still on the IL. So regardless, Connor Norby's not coming back through that door. Jorge Mateo's injured, and now Jordan Westburg's out until well into
Whenever.
September, the way it sounds. It stinks. I mean, it does. I mean, this hurts. Again, this doesn't change my thoughts on them being a obvious playoff team. Doesn't mean they can't win the AL East, but you need other people to step up, and that's where maybe we transition to talk about Jackson Holliday and the good vibes of him returning, hitting a grand slam. Thought he made some other good contact as well. Struck out once. He's going to strike out some. I mean,
he struck out after he hit the ball a quarter of an inch away from hitting a home run.
Right. So
a 3-run home run would have been 7 RBI day.
Right, but my point is, I mean, he has swing and miss. He had swing and miss at AAA even. So I
so
think
did Westburg. Westburg strikes out a lot, right?
I mean, Colton Cowser, who continues to swing the bat really well. Colton Cowser has a lot of swing and miss. Colton Cowser has a little more than you'd like, but he does so many other things that you can live with it. But this is, this coinciding with Jackson Holliday's return is a reminder of what kind of player Jackson Holliday, the Orioles envision him being. Now, let me be very clear here. I'm not suggesting that Jackson Holliday is going to step right in and give you Jordan Westburg production. I think that would be unfair to expect that of a 20-year-old. But if they can get a steadier version of Jackson Holliday, let's just say, and I was talking about this with someone out at Ravens practice, someone who just watches the Orioles on a nightly basis and roots for the team and everything, said if Jackson Holliday at age 20, understand, this is not what I'm talking what he's going to be moving forward, but at age 20, if he can kind of give you league average offensive production at second base and play good defense there and look much more equipped to handle being a big leaguer than he did back in April. And I don't mean like the mental side or anything like that. I think this kid is mature beyond his years, but just the actual challenge, the physical demands of playing Major League Baseball. If he can do that and take walks like he did at the minor league level, probably not at that same high rate, but at least close to that, then I think that could go a long way in helping to fill some of that production that you're missing with Jordan Westburg. And yeah, let's go down the list. Gunnar Henderson needs to find his power stroke again. Didn't have a terrible July, but certainly the power was down a little bit. But Adley Rutschman is the big one. I mean, they need Adley Rutschman to start swinging the bat again. I mean, Nestor, go if you want something that's
what
gonna.
Are his splits? I'm wondering, what are his splits the last 6 weeks? I mean, it's got to be. Is he hitting a 121? I mean,
in the month of July, I'm going off of what I saw a couple days ago. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 125 in the month of July. So obviously he needs to start hitting and hitting like Adley Rutschman again. So that's the thing. I mean, the one thing we've talked about, and look, we know that their offense scuffled. Everything scuffled in July. I mean, we know that. We talked about it for weeks now. But this is a deep lineup. So even though you're going to miss Jordan Westburg and you're going to miss Jordan Westburg a lot, it's not as though you're the Yankees where, we've talked about them being a two-man lineup for, until recently where they're starting to play better again. But I mean, this hurts. And certainly Ramon Arias isn't going to do what Jordan Westburg does. And even if they do call up Kobe Mayo at some point in the next couple weeks and give him an extended look at third base, it's still going to be a tall order to expect him to step right in and start raking in the way that Jordan Westburg is capable of doing it. So this is a loss. I mean, it's definitely a hit. It definitely hurts their trajectory in terms of trying to win the AL East. To me, it doesn't doesn't harm their playoff chances, right? I mean, they're going to be a playoff team, but in terms of reaching your ceiling and winning as many games as you need to down the stretch, because it does look like the Yankees are starting to play better baseball. I mean, they just swept the Phillies, so they need to be playing at a high level, and starting this weekend in Cleveland, where it's going to be a tough ask against a really good Guardians team. They're going to have to pick up the slack for Jordan Westburg, but just the timing of it just stinks, because it really felt like, with the deadline and Holiday coming up, and the fact that they played better baseball over the last 4 or 5 days, kind of felt like, okay, they're fine again, right?
But they've endured 4 pitching injuries if you take
Sure.
Batista. They've endured all of that.
Yeah.
They've endured the slump in July, and now they've endured the trading deadline where they weren't big winners, but I think they improved the baseball team. I think we spent all day Wednesday talking about, and probably all day here on the radio, just talking about, like, they improved around the margins. And when you have Rutschman, Henderson, Westburg, don't anymore, but Santander, you got Burns, you got Rodriguez. I mean, you got all the pieces there. Closer was an issue. It still is an issue.
Yeah.
Even though you spent a lot of money in the offseason. But this is demoralizing a little bit to have this kid go down the way he has. But it's also, to your point, an opportunity for Holiday to step up, and maybe he doesn't need to hit a grand slam every night and come close to 7 RBIs every night. But to your point, showing that he's an is and not that might be.
Yeah, and I think for him to have that success in his first game back, I think is going to be huge for him. And look, again, to your point, it doesn't mean he's going to start hitting bombs every other game and all that. I think you still have to have an expectation of, for example, go back and look at what kind of offensive player Manny Machado was his first year in 2012 when he got caught up in August. Look, Manny was a similar age, right? I mean, Manny was 20 years old. So
and they were batting him 7th or 8th at that
right,
time.
And he had his moments, and he held his own, but he wasn't what Manny Machado would be even the next year, let alone 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So I think we need to understand what the expectations for a 20-year-old in a major league lineup should be, which is, if he can be, somewhere in the realm of average as an offensive player and play good defense, then that's still a valuable player for you, especially considering Mateo had really fallen off since early June. So again, it's not as simple as saying, well, Holiday replaces Westburg's production. I mean, that's ambitious. That would be very ambitious, especially considering how much we saw Holiday struggle back in April. But I think for him, mentally and emotionally, to have the grand slam, to have the curtain call, to have the ovations, to nearly have another long ball, I think that does so much for him from a confidence standpoint. The last thing you wanted, Nestor, was Holiday to come up, and even if he's been able to compartmentalize and he's completely blocked out what happened in April, because heck, it was 3 months ago, the last thing you wanted was him to start off 0 for 13 on this latest return to the major leagues, and then suddenly he's got in his head again that, can I do this? He's starting to doubt himself. For him to hit the grand slam in his third at bat, I think that does a lot for him to say, all right, I've hit a home run at the major league level now. I've hit a grand slam at the major league level now. I've gotten a curtain call at the major league level now. I can do this. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to be overconfident and cocky now either, but I can do this. And I've had some success, and my teammates were excited for me when I hit the grand slam. Now he can settle in. The lights aren't quite as bright as they were in April in terms of when you're making your debut and MLB Network's doing special features on you and all that kind of stuff. Now it's, yes, there was excitement, and yes, it was newsworthy that he was called back up, but it's a pennant race now. It's August, right? I mean, the Orioles are in first place. I mean, the Yankees are right there with them, and it's much more about the results. In April, no one's looking at the standings at that point in time, so there was more of a focus.
You're looking at 0 for 4, 0 for 5
individually, right? Yeah, and again, don't get me wrong. That's why I said it was important for him to have this immediate success. I think that's going to go a long way for his confidence, and they don't need him to be great, but they need him to be part of what's going to be a collective effort to pick up the slack for that Jordan Westburg production. And yes, I think there's a good chance it could be Kobe Mayo at some point here later this month. But for right now, they're going for a defense reserve bench kind of guy in Livan Soto, who again was part of that trade that the Orioles made with Cincinnati the other day. He had initially been optioned to AAA, but he will join the team in Cleveland. And I fully expect Ramon Arias to be starting at third base, primarily, at least for the time being, until Kobe Mayo potentially gets that call.
Don't tell Munch Bishop this. I had breakfast with him earlier this week, and you'll hear him. You can find him out at Baltimore Positive. He's only been on the radio in Cleveland for 43 years, covering all of it. And we talked some Browns, talked some Rock Hall, talked some Michael Stanley, but talked a lot about the Indians, Guardians, baseball in Cleveland, how people come, the history of all of it, Albert Bell. We did all Eddie Murray, Dennis Martinez, signing Baerga, Bell, and Lofton back in the day, which is now 30 years ago. They're the best team in the American League as we arrive. And when I start to think about October being, 8 weeks away, and I clear my schedule for the first week of October and think, who are we playing? Boy, the Indians are going to be in the way in October. And you're going to get a look at them this weekend. And, we talk about seeing teams or not seeing teams, or what our team's going to look like, whether Westburg's going to be back, and who our pitchers are going to be. And now we got Eflin and Rogers and these guys in there. This is an interesting little measurement here this week. To get a look at the Cleveland Guardians, knowing that they're going to be in the way. I mean, of all the things that I know, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be in the way in October in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, whether they're on a collision course or not, I mean, hey, it's baseball and they're short series and you never know, but they're going to be there. And they played great baseball this year. The Orioles are going to get a look at their pitching. Obviously, we talked about this when Cleveland came to town earlier this season. Great bullpen. I mean, their bullpen is I'm envious of their bullpen in terms of having 3, 4, 5 guys that are just you can bring in any spot and they're just going to do the job. I mean, that's what I've been saying.
As you sit here on August 1st, if they're in the World Series and we're not and the Yankees aren't, and it's because of that, we'll sit here and I'll say Luke's talked about their bullpen all summer,
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's important.
It's the best bullpen in baseball, right? I mean, Philadelphia side, they dealt us 2 of their guys.
Yeah, well, and Philadelphia still added to their bullpen. So, I mean, and sure, the Phillies bullpen very formidable, and we talked about that when they came to town. But I think what's going to be interesting this series for the Orioles is Burns is going to pitch the finale, but Grayson Rodriguez not starting in this series. We are going to get our first look at Trevor Rogers. We're going to get our second look at Zach Eflin. We're going to see Cleveland. Carrasco is going to make a start. He has not been good, but the rest of that rotation, it's not a dominant, unbelievable rotation, but it's a good rotation with a great bullpen that follows it. So,
like ours, it would look better with Bieber. Our rotation would look better with Bradish.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tanner Bybee will start on Saturday. He's kind of become their ace. Ben Lively starts the opener, and Gavin Williams will pitch the finale against Burns. So, it's going to be a challenge, especially no Jordan Westburg now, and what that means for the bottom half of your lineup. So, you hope Ramon Arias, who swung the bat quite well in the month of July, albeit understanding he doesn't play every single day, but he was playing a lot. You're hoping he can continue that for the time being, because I know a lot of fans were clamoring immediately for Kobe Mayo, and I think we're going to see him now. I'm very confident we're going to see him at some point, especially now with Westberg's injury. But are either of those guys going to be what Jordan Westburg gives you with the bat? No. I mean, I think Kobe Mayo eventually could be that, or could be better in the long run, in terms of his ceiling. But we've also seen just about all of their young players struggle initially when they get called up. I mean, including Rutschman, including Gunnar Henderson, Westburg last year, Cowser last year, Holliday earlier this year. I mean, it's the way it works. It's really difficult. The jump from AAA to the majors is maybe bigger than it's ever been. And I know some people have, I've seen some smart columnists and baseball scribes even opine on that because of the pitching crisis in Major League Baseball, in terms of, if you're a AAA pitcher worth your salt, you're not there very long because they need you at the major league level in most cases. So AAA results are great. AAA success is great. You certainly want guys to hit at AAA, but that does not mean it's going to translate to the major leagues right away. So it stinks to lose Jordan Westburg. We're talking about one of your 3 best players all year, somewhere in that realm. So you hope that he can make a return by, if best case scenario to me would be maybe mid-September, and he can get some at-bats under his belt and get himself back into the swing of things for whatever their postseason path is going to be, whether it's division, wild card, whatever it is. But we're going to have to see what the further testing looks like. We're going to have to see what the healing process looks like. And anytime you're talking about, I mean, it's good that this wasn't the wrist. I'd rather have it be hand than wrist because, anytime you're talking about the wrist and the little bones in there and what that can mean for someone's swing, that's when you're really skeptical as far as how quickly you can come back. Hand is, where he got hit, you hope is a little bit better. But look, I'm just trying to, putting lipstick on a pig when I'm trying to talk like that. I mean, that's this is a tough blow for the Orioles for the time being. There's no doubt about it, and they're going to need other guys to step up in a big way.
Luke Jones will be in Owings Mills all weekend long. We'll be monitoring all things Cleveland Guardians and the Orioles all weekend long. You can find all of our work at Baltimore Positive. And Luke can be found in real time out of social media, as can I, from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook and Twitter and X and Threads and stuff we don't even understand. We'll get some more baseball in here. We've had a lot of baseball conversation this week, including on money, payroll, trading deadline, Mr. Rubenstein's money, and just a lot of changes around the baseball team this week. So Luke's on that. I'm on that. We're on that. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking. Birdland, Oriole baseball. Good luck in Cleveland.